Welcome back to the Radical Innovators podcast. I'm your host, Frank Conju, and today we're incredibly fortunate to be joined by phenomenal leader Lisa Chang, Executive Vice President and Global Chief People Officer at the Coca-Cola Company. Lisa is responsible for leading Coca-Cola's global people strategy, total rewards, and culture, all aligned with the company's purpose of refreshing the world and making a difference. What I enjoyed most about recording this episode was how Lisa talked in depth about her philosophy on progress in your career. We covered a lot of ground in this exciting episode, but I wanted to move beyond business and strategy and talk about the company's magic. The magic, for us, is what makes a place like Coca-Cola a career destination. For Lisa, it's clearly defined by a deep sense of pride in the brand's powerful connection to community and its purpose of refreshing the world and making a difference. Stick around for the full conversation with Lisa Chang, EVP and Global Chief People Officer at the Coca-Cola Company. Let's dive in. Hey, Lisa. Great to have you on the Radical Innovators.
Hi, Frank. Nice to see you.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a while since we were together down in Atlanta, and appreciate you hosting us for the HR Innovator Summit.
It's a great event. It's great to see everyone.
I was really excited to get a chance to bring you on, given all the phenomenal work that you've been leading and that Coca-Cola as an organization has been doing, particularly around shaping and developing talent, and then the transformation you're leading. So I definitely want to jump into that. The second, before we do that though, I think it's often people get a chance to see you on LinkedIn and perhaps get to see what Coca-Cola does as an organization, but they don't often get a chance to know who you are as a person. So I'd like to just do a quick introduction that's slightly different. And so because I've used sweet and sour on the last few calls, I'll go with energy check. So real quick, today, Lisa, 0 to 5, where's your energy and what's draining it? And if it's helpful while you're thinking, I'm happy to go first.
All right, you go then since you offered.
Okay, energy is at a 5, and it's going to quickly go to a 1 or a 2 tomorrow. I've had my daughter with me all week, and we still have summer vacation here. And we've done something fun and exciting every night. And unfortunately, I lose her tomorrow and she goes to Cape Cod. So this excitement of all the stuff that I've been able to do with her solo disappears. So I think tomorrow I'm going to be on a bit of an energy dip. But today, right now, it's at a 5.
Oh, well, that's sad, but hopefully the memories you've created will help uplift that one a little bit. I'm feeling pretty good today. I would say I'm probably like a 4.7, and it's really only because I've been on the go for a few weeks. I just got back from a team offsite where we were together for 3 days talking about the future and the future of HR, which was super energizing, but obviously took a lot of focus and energy. So just getting back into the office and sitting at a desk and crunching in, just kind of a slight little lift. But I've had my Diet Coke, so I'm ready to go.
I expected some product placement. I thought maybe you have one there on the desk and ready to go, but perfect. Reminds me of that Austin Powers, original Austin Powers, great product placement. So thank you for doing that. And 4.7, that's a professional score. I gave an amateur score with an even number, so now I'm embarrassed, and I'll improve on the next one. So just thinking about your journey, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what got you to where you are today. Obviously, just a little bit about your background. I think a lot of people that are listening to this aspire to eventually someday be in your seat, not specifically in your organization, but in another organization. So be curious if there's like 1 or 2 best practices that you that got you to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that my journey is a series of following experiences that have led me to the seat that I'm in. I get that question a lot, like, what do you need to do to get into a CPO seat? And I think most of us would say there is no magic formula. There's a series of experience that you want to accumulate over time. It's a combination of putting yourself out there, being willing to take some leaps of faith, aligning yourself with people who are willing to give you a chance and support you along the way. But for me, I started out in HR, believe it or not, as an intern.
Oh, wow.
And, 3+ decades later can say that, it clearly was an internship that impacted my career decisions because I'm still at it. And again, through a series of experiences, I've worked in financial services, manufacturing, media, sports, entertainment, and now CPG. I think I've navigated all the different ways that you could kind of get into an HR function, everything from a specialist. I started out as an HR analyst, then I went into compensation, then did recruiting, a little more traditional ways of getting into HR. But each step of the way, I think what was important to me was finding interesting work that challenged me to grow. I did take a step outside of HR for a little while and did a general management role that really shaped, I would say, my leadership philosophy about the importance of the people function and culture. And again, each one of those just kind of took me one step closer to doing something different, expanding into international, going global, coming back, doing something more local, going back into global. So a lot of different experiences, but very fortunate to feel like I've been able to make a career out of something that, as a 19-year-old intern, never thought it would amount to anything.
Yeah, a lot of specific best practices in there, and I love some of the things you hit on. And one of those I want to go back to that concept of putting yourself out there and building a network, but then the point around moving around industries, because I think a lot of people feel like they can't get into that role unless they stay with an organization for a long time, and there's this concern of job hopping.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, that's given you a very well rounded background and supported it. The other piece is just think about the session that you led when we were at HR Innovators around CHROs getting on boards. And if I think about Art Hopkins shared, it was being very intentional about building that brand and building that network. And that's probably relevant for any role. I mean, particularly given the way that we learned about board searches being conducted. But is there any one piece of advice you would give for, because we do have a number of CHROs that tune in, around what they should be thinking about or can be doing to position themselves appropriately, and then how you've navigated that process?
Yeah, I think you touched on it in terms of the different experiences that not only prove your ability to reinvent your capabilities, have that learner mindset, show that you're willing to take on challenges that maybe you haven't done before, but you do need some proof points of
Yeah.
having shown your ability to be resilient, to recover from something, to tackle a new challenge that you've never had to do before. The days of having a playbook that you just carry with you from job to job and company to company, and you just implement the playbook over and over again, are long gone. The world is definitely much more volatile and unpredictable. And so the ones that are most successful are the ones that have a track record, whether it's different industries, different companies, different jobs, different roles, that show this ability to be resilient, to recover from something, to tackle a challenge you've never had to tackle before, to chart a new path without a playbook. I think especially in the jobs of the CHRO, CPO these days, so much comes at us that is not what it was in the decades before of, again, predictability.
It's funny if you take out that part around the specific piece about what it takes to get on boards, everything you said around new playbook needs to be written, new skill sets is relevant for everyone. If you think about people that are coming out of school and how to be relevant in today's workforce, I'm really curious about like what you're doing to develop individuals, because everything you said is relevant, I think, to just about anyone, regardless of whether they're in HR or whether they're in CPG. These are different skills that people need to navigate and develop. What are you doing as an organization to help equip the younger generation, but also people that you're trying to move into roles and new roles in the organization?
That has been sort of the focus of our talent strategy. We call it Thrive. And when we created it a few years ago, it was built on the premise that in order to progress in your career, it had to be over a set of experiences and opportunities that allow you to accumulate, again, skills, experiences, capabilities, to build growth. And contrary to the old days of hierarchical moves, right? You're an accountant one, then you be an accountant two, then you're a supervisor, then you have that. The world doesn't operate that anymore. The world is much more of a horizontal zigzag up and down. So what Thrive does is it allows employees to identify their career ambitions and their career aspirations. And through a series of facilitated tools and processes that we have as a company, we allow you to gain those experiences without necessarily having to change jobs. So we have a place called Opportunity Marketplace where we post project-based roles that allow people to apply to get on teams that are outside of their functions, their operating units, and their geographies to join a team to work on a project that is something that's maybe completely different than what they're doing today. But they get to work with a different set of people, with a different set of problems. You could be in HR and you're going to work with the marketing team. And that, again, builds a set of experiences that otherwise in the past you would have to change jobs to do. We allow people to take a period of time to go do those. STAs can be, a couple of weeks to a couple of months. And we allow them to, again, gain that experience with the intention that they come back with a new set of experiences that can be played out into future roles. We also have mentoring programs. We have leadership development and training programs and other experiences that help people build strengths and capabilities along the way. And a lot of them are self-paced and self-learned. So that gives people the opportunity to be in control of their own careers and define what are the things that they want to accumulate along the path next. And then obviously at some point you would, may see an opportunity that you're interested in being considered for, and you can go through our internal job posting process, be interviewed and considered as a slate. And all of what we encourage everybody to do is have a talent card, which is like their internal LinkedIn profile that allows leaders in the organization to understand what are your skills, capabilities, experiences, and things that you've done to build yourself up towards being considered for the next role.
Yeah, I mean, that card sounds great because so many people struggle with being able to articulate the reason or the value that they can bring to something, particularly if it's not something they've done. So I think it's not only a forcing mechanism, but it gives them some structure. So that's and everybody's speaking a common language, as I would assume, as a result of that. And that's an interesting concept. This idea of like the way you're not only so proactively promoting people to go into these other roles. But I would be curious, what's the uptake or where do you see it from? Like, is it more knowledge workers or more frontline workers taking advantage of this?
It's definitely more knowledge workers. I mean, the Coca-Cola company, our system is sort of a two-pronged approach. We have our bottling system, our distribution partners that actually manufacture and distribute our products. Those are mostly done by independent bottlers that are franchisees of ours. The company as a whole is largely a marketing services company that markets the products, does the innovation, creates the brands. So most of our folks on the company side tend to be knowledge workers that are accumulating these new skills and capabilities along the way. And the other thing I would say is because technology is moving so fast, it gives people an opportunity to learn about some of the new tech that's out there, whether it's generative AI or data and analytics and insights, offering people the opportunity to get upskilled on that because it's so new. Even finding people in the market with those experiences is challenging. So we're offering opportunities for people to learn that within our internal learning systems.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, I hosted a dinner for a group of global CIOs, and they talked about these two things around knowledge workers mostly not leaning into this upskilling and reskilling around AI because they're more fearful of it taking their jobs than frontline workers, which was the reverse of what they initially believed. And then the second was we can create and roll out all these tools, but no one's leveraging them or the percentage of people which we'd hope are leveraging them. I'm curious what you're doing around bringing people into learning and leveraging digital tools, and then how you're using that to improve, whether it's in talent acquisition, the employee experience, developing the talent. It sounds like you're using it in part of moving individuals around the organization as part of career mobility, but are there any areas you'd point to where you'd say, hey, we think we've cracked the code and this is something where we're leveraging these tools quite well?
I'm not sure we've cracked the code. I think we're experimenting like lots of companies are experimenting. I would say that our organization was an early adopter of we need to embrace, let's just say, generative AI and the power that it brings. So we were one of the first organizations to really build a partnership with Bain and Company on what does this mean? How are you using it? We've been looking at it and for several years have been using that in our marketing function as we look at analytics and data and influencers and the impact it has on the branding and selling of our products. Internally, we have encouraged experimentation all along. Everything from, a playfulness of it. Our CEO and other executive members often talk about using it to help them write their, opening speeches, or, our CEO likes to have jokes or things. We really are just trying to encourage people to play around with it, to understand that we have a lot to learn. And I think for the HR function, we were the first function to adopt a version of generative AI at a scalable level, which is we implemented something called Knowledge Hub. And this was several years ago. It was right after I came back from a Microsoft conference, and they were talking about Copilot. And I immediately called our CTO and said, we have to do this, and we have to figure out how to do it fast. But we basically, several years ago, ingested all of the HR documentations, the formerly known as handbooks, the policies, programs, everything. We ingested all of that into a generative AI tool that allowed employees to basically prompt and ask questions about anything on the HR employment front that was about their relationship with the company. It's benefit plans, it's how to code your time off, it's where can I find the leadership behaviors, what do I do about this, that, and the other. And in the early days, it was a repository, but we've been training it, as you do with generative AI, to be a bit more colloquial in its framing of questions and answers. And, as an example, in the early days, you could type in a question of, I'm having problems with my manager. What advice do you have for me on how I can get a resolution to this? And in the past, it would bring up the policy on, problem resolution. Now it prompts you for more information. I'm sorry to hear you're having problems with your manager. What kind of problems are you having? How can I guide you on that? Is it a performance problem? Is it a communication problem? Is it a whatever? So those are the types of things that we're playing around with it. We obviously want to do more, and we think there's great opportunity to do more in this space, in the recruiting space, in the coaching space, and just really help upskill the capabilities of our managers and our people leaders.
Yeah, it's interesting the way people are using it. I'm sure you've seen these studies. It went from a de facto Google search to people. The number one use now is therapy. And what does that say in terms of the level of empathy and things, as you mentioned, right? Now it's asking people how they feel and
A good
bringing,
listener, right? It seems very empathetic and sympathetic. I was talking to somebody else the other day, and they told me that every day when they drive to work, they're having conversations with their AI as a way of teaching it and helping it learn more about them. So they drive into work and they start on a conversation. Tell me the news of the day. Oh, that's really interesting. I wonder what's happening here. And it's basically having a conversation with AI every day to train it on the way it thinks, its preferences, the type of news that the person wants to ingest. I thought that was really smart.
It's really smart. That I'm also like, is that scary? Hopefully they continue to keep their friend group and their social circle at work as well. So, we talked a little bit about internal mobility and what you're doing to grow talent in the organization. In terms of Coca-Cola's future workforce, some CEOs have been coming out and been very declarative around, if you're in certain roles, these jobs will be going away. I think about, I was recently at the TED conference where the CEO of ABM stood on the stage, and obviously ABM, a very large frontline workforce, and said many of your jobs in the next 5 years will be going away as a result of humanoid robots coming into the organization and cleaning windows at airports, as an example. Are there roles in which you see that are likely to be impacted, whether these are unique to your organization and can be more broadly applied, where you're trying to make sure you're getting ahead of this because so many individuals that are going to be coming out of school are going to be prepared for the jobs of the future, but individuals also in certain roles. Are there roles particularly that are a concern for you where you're putting an emphasis on making sure you develop this talent?
Yeah, I think a couple of things I would say. Certainly, there will be roles that will be impacted. That's been true of all technology over time. I started out in college, I was a bank teller. I challenge you to find a bank teller today. Very few exist. Everything is done online through an app, et cetera. But banking has shifted into a much more consultative experience. If you go into the bank, you're usually sitting down with a live person to have a lengthy conversation about your investment strategy or a loan, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that that's true of all tech. It's going to impact roles. For us, we look at it as not either or, but and we kind of look at it through the lens of there's headwork, there's handwork, and there's heartwork. And the handwork is what we believe can be automated fairly easily, right? It's the rote tasks that are repetitive that you can use past data as a predictor of how you should answer it in the future. There's a lot of things in the workplace that can be done that way. And we want to leverage technology as much as possible to take space out of the workplace for the hands work that can be automated and allow people to focus on the head work, which is the critical thinking, the analytical thinking, the innovation, the things that kind of people need to use their brains for, because that's the value of a human is creating new things. If you think about technology, it can only create things based on a series of inputs that it has received, whereas humans can create things that are not known yet. And then the final piece for us is the heart work, which is about relationships. It's about community. It's about empathy. It's about care. All
Yeah.
these things that are quite difficult to replace in technology. Yes, you can have one that seems to be sympathetic and empathetic in its day-to-day conversations with you, but more than likely the deep, meaningful relationships are still going to be at the human level. So we would prefer that our people spend more time building in-depth community and relationships with not only each other as employees in the same company, but with our partners, our communities, and our consumers. Ours is as a beverage company that has always been focused on community and people. You're hard pressed to find many Coca-Cola ads in all of our product set that are one person by themselves. It's usually in some type of a setting where there are people celebrating together or being together in a community. And I think that's the power of our brand. So heart work to us is extremely important, and that will always, for us, be done by humans.
Yeah, I love it. You hit on a couple things in there in terms of what I wanted to ask you about next, which what makes Coca-Cola a career destination? I think you've hit on several, but anything you'd add beyond what you've already shared, things that you're doing to help make a difference in the lives of employees while also helping build a better business?
Yeah, I think, we talk about the magic of Coca-Cola a lot. And what's special about it, I think, is it's a brand that is ubiquitous. Pretty much everybody knows about Coca-Cola. I think what we're trying to teach people and consumers today is the breadth with which we have products in our portfolio that can, address all types of consumers. It's not, I talk to people and say, well, I work at Coca-Cola. Well, I don't drink soda. Well, great. We have dairy products, we have coffee products, we have juice, we have water, we have, so I think that's an important one. But for us, it's also about what the brand represents. If you look at all the historical taglines, it's, we start out with our ad from the early 80s around I'd like to buy the world a Coke, which was a forage to communities, bringing the world together, all that bringing Coke to life. We have all of these they're not tactical items that we're saying, our purpose is to refresh the world and make a difference. And in the early days, refresh the world was really the beverage refresh. We look at it now as a much broader set of ambitions and aspirations, which is refreshing the mind, body, spirit, soul communities of the brand itself brings together all of these pieces. And what I would say about the Coca-Cola community is anywhere you go in the world, you can find a Coke. And there's something about it where everybody has some memory of something with a Coca-Cola product that triggers in their mind some feeling of, I remember that I was, with my kids' baseball team. And, after the game, we all went to get pizza and everybody had a Coke and we did a cheers, or, at the wedding, or, there's all kinds of things that I think invoke that community and that feel. And what we're very fortunate about is the people that work here carry that forward, not only as a consumer, but as an employee. And the level of pride that we have from our employees of being affiliated with the Coca-Cola brand is extremely high. And I think that kind of trickles over into the community of being a Coca-Cola employee. Anywhere in the world, and I say this, anywhere in the world you go, if you work for Coca-Cola, you have a friend, because you could call any Coke office around the world and tell them that you're a Coke employee, and the literal, figurative red carpet would be rolled out for you.
I love that. As a non-soda drinker, acknowledging that, mine would be my brother. big Coca-Cola drinker, specifically the red cans. So lots of memories there.
Awesome.
You talked about mentorship. This is something I'm really interested in generally. Just in terms of, you mentioned your mentoring is something you do as an organization proactively. It's hard to do and replicate at scale. And then, so there's two questions, I guess. One is, are there a couple of mentors that you would point to that were instrumental in your career? And then two, what are you doing to actually get people to want to mentor others? Because it does take time and it's a commitment of which maybe they don't necessarily see a return on that. So just curious if there's any best practices you're doing to drive a culture of mentoring.
Yeah. Definitely have lots of mentors that have guided me along the way. And, I think of everything from immediate managers to the CEO of the company that I worked for at the time, the Weather Channel, that kind of gave me my first opportunity to do something outside of HR, to the head of HR of a parent company that I worked for. So lots of people that have invested time and energy, which what I think is the most valuable is I always found that time with my mentors was an opportunity for me to validate, if you will, some of the experiences I was having. So usually when I would go meet with a mentor, I was struggling with something. I kind of felt like, maybe I had stumbled or I was having a moment of insecurity about myself. And I always found it very validating to hear from others who had been through similar journeys to say, you know what, that's very common. People feel like that, the imposter syndrome, the whatever, you're in the job because you deserve the job, those types of things. And I think that that's extremely helpful. And I use that a lot when I ask people to invest time in mentoring the future generation. Is all of us have been through those moments when we feel like we're alone and when we feel like we're the only person in the room that knows that we're the imposter and everybody else thinks we know what we're doing and we really don't. So I think it's super, super important that we give back. And much like a parent would, a lot of times it's investing so that the future generation can get the comfort and the security they need to move forward. So in our organization, a lot of the mentoring that we recommend people do is we have inclusion networks. We have communities where people can find communities that they feel more connected to. And those tend to be the places where we encourage people to find people like them that can tell their story, that can connect with them, whether it's, young parents trying to juggle work and family, or, somebody who's late in their career trying to figure out how to reinvent themselves. I mean, each one of those, I think, creates an opportunity for someone to say, hey, I've been there. You'll get to the other side, and here are the things that, you'll discover along the way. And I always find that to be super helpful.
Yeah. And I think there's like a bit of a reframe on that because, mentoring at the end of the day, if you kind of step back and you say, generosity is mentoring is a form of generosity, and generosity is often a selfish act. I think the people who provide the mentoring sometimes walk away from those conversations feeling better than the person receiving it, because you feel like you've been able to take what you've learned and add some value and hopefully impact a person's career, maybe even their life. And similar to you, I'm blessed to have some great mentors and people like Keith Ferrazzi and Kevin Gagan and Christoph Niebel and others that I worked for. And now have a phenomenal mentor and a guy named Mike Smith at Ronstadt. So, I think absolutely been blessed with great mentors and think about all the ways, how can I give back in that way?
Yes, for sure.
Last thing, only because, you hit a lot on community throughout the conversation, particularly in the last question where we were talking about the affinity for individuals wanting to go to Coca-Cola. As a guy who lives the community space, and this is really what I do. I'd love to think about how do we amplify some of that, and maybe there's something for us to co-produce in Atlanta, and we'll serve all Coca-Cola products minus the wine, because I don't think you're in that business. But I would love to think about maybe there's something fun for us to do and take this on the road. And I'll be in Atlanta often, so maybe there's an opportunity for us to pull up and bring some Coke products to the table.
Absolutely. Love to do that. And again, the products themselves bring the people together, but the robustness of it. And I think the thing that's why we say it's to refresh the world and make a difference is anywhere you go in the world where you can find a Coke, when the community's in need, Coca-Cola is the first to address that. So if you see a natural disaster around the world, Shortly thereafter, the big red truck rolls up with water to help serve the communities. We send in volunteers to help, deal with any emergencies that are there. And I think that's just the behaviors and the attitudes of the refreshing the world and making a difference mantra that we have, which is our people. We consider ourselves to be part of our communities that we live in. And that's an important part of who we are. So we are all for continuing to build and thrive as communities together.
Yeah, I love it. It's not just it's truly living the brand, not just putting it out there. Couple rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Rolling Stones or the Beatles?
Rolling Stone.
All right, we're definitely still friends. Beach vacation or ski trip?
Beach vacation.
All right, we're even stronger friends. Red wine or white wine?
Red wine.
This Atlanta dinner is going to be phenomenal whenever we get this thing on the books. It's 3 for 3. That hasn't happened yet. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today. A lot of great insights, and we're so excited to be able to publish this and share it with the HR community.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank, and thanks for all that you do for our community as well. It's been great speaking to you.
Look forward to seeing you sometime soon.
Sounds good. Take care.